Manufacturers Chairperson and Jane Dungo, External Affairs, MRM. And Madam Dungo, I was coming to you on this issue on what specifically affects women in manufacturing, especially when it comes to the free trade area, and how can that be sorted out?
I will not say one specific thing affects women when they want to access more markets, but I can maybe zero in on a few. And one of them is the traditional barrier to growing in business, which has been finance. And you find our banks and other lending institutions, they have traditionally used assets as collateral for any capital outlay that a lady would be looking for. And it's only until recently when ladies started having conversation on owning land and stuff like that. But traditionally, these assets were held in the name of the man, of the family. So it would be difficult to commit such an asset for a business that is being run by a lady. So going forward, the wish of many women entrepreneurs and even women in manufacturing is that our banks will become more innovative, have innovative products that are custom-made to suit the women in business or women in manufacturing, where this traditional collateral can be something of the past. Then secondly, there is the issue of most of the manufacturing has been seen as a male-dominated environment. And you find very few women who have managed to go into manufacturing, whether in actual manufacturing of setting up manufacturing plants or in leadership in those manufacturing entities, have always found themselves in a very lonely environment. So I guess that is something that is we have seen with women in manufacturing in this country, that they're operating in a very male-dominated environment, and therefore you find the policies, they are very much gender biased. They don't look at how can we support a woman who is in manufacturing to do her trade and do it in a comfortable environment. And even this goes for smaller traders who are just doing even cross-border trade. You find borders have been porous for many reasons, and you find a lot of women will suffer even bodily harm just trying to move their products from one side of the border to the other side of the border. So the challenges are many, the challenges are documented. There are also very many policies or international commitments that have been given to protect women in the work front, women in trade, women in cross-border trade. And the wish is that this can transfer from being papers that have been written, researched very well and written, to implementation. So that any woman who really wants to go into manufacturing, wants to go into cross-border trade, wants to go into global business, she feels she's in the right place, and she's being looked at with very gender-responsive policies and regulations.
Should there be a caveat to this? You see the way, and by that I mean this is going to be a very difficult thing to implement, especially when you're talking about an entire continent. You see the way Kenya has the AGPO certificate, Access to Government Procurement Opportunity Certificate, which is for women, persons with disability, and the youth, who then are entitled to 30% of all procurement. It doesn't really happen, but it is there on paper. Should we have a caveat for the after as well, for women and youth? Or will that be a difficult thing to implement in terms of competition?
I don't think it will be a difficult thing to implement, because when you go to even the basic rule where we have 30% representation of any gender, it's not happening only in Kenya, it's happening in other countries. And the same is now trickling down to businesses, where you find they have to comply. You find, you look at the leadership at the top has to comply, middle management, factory workers. So it's not a new conversation that should be held because we are going into the bigger African free trade area. It is something that should just be implemented. Because of even Kenya, most of the commitments that it has signed up to, these are global commitments, and they're happening also in other countries around Africa.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of implementing and making women know that they have a cause for redress if something happens to them, if they're trying to do cross-border trade.
Okay.
And also for the manufacturing sector is just to make it sensitive to women. You know, women have 3 roles.
Yeah.
We are supposed to be reproductive, we are supposed to be productive, and at the same time we are supposed to perform. So for us to be able to perform these 3 roles, I think all these issues must be embedded within company policies or trading regulations, so that it is a fair ground for both men and women and other disadvantaged sectors.
All right.
I mean segments of our community.
All right.
Yes.
Karanja, there's something that Mushai brought up, the issue of the credit back guarantee schemes. Did it ever trickle down to the Mama Mboga? What happened to that? I remember there was an announcement around that.
It never did. It never saw the light of the day. And I think we had a discussion, same show, I think some time back.
Yeah.
The issue with SME is a high-risk area where you see the bank does not want to venture into. Yeah. So the bank wants to venture into people who are low risk, and they can be able to give collateral as it were. But now the issue is, how do we structure the businesses so that the government can be able also not to compete with the traders, because the government is competing with the traders. The government is borrowing from banks, and so the government is low risk. And so when the banks are private entities, shareholding entities, that means that they are businesses which they are making profits. And so when you look at the structure of the bank guarantees which were given, they didn't meet the Mama Mboga threshold. So it met some thresholds up there which Mama Mboga cannot be able to reach. And that is why we are saying that the bank should have tailor-made kind of products, you know, they are offering there, so that they can be able to reach the Mama Mboga, and also simplify to the basics. You see, when you're talking about SMEs, sometimes we have, they tell us, mko na kizungu mingi sana. Can you break it down to consumable, understandable language that you can be able to, you know, to access to? We say bank guarantees. They even don't know what those bank guarantees are. If they go, like, let me give an example. The government gave, I think it was first 3 billion shillings. Yeah. You walk into a bank, an example, whichever bank it is, which ideally were, you know, they were the holding entities of the money, and they tell you we don't have SMEs money. And the government is saying that you have already dispensed, you already dispatched this money to help SMEs, you know, to cushion SMEs, but the money is not there. So I think government, number one, should have very realistic ways of approach towards that. Then also on our end as SMEs, I'm also looking at both sides, not just pointing at the government. We decided to structure ourselves to a point whereby now the government can feel comfortable with our financial structures and systems as an alliance and many other organized entities, that money can pass through those entities without going through the bank, because if it goes through the bank, there's also you know, financial policies which are governed by the Central Bank of Kenya, which they cannot be able to break. Yeah. So it's like a straitjacket kind of approach. If we have our structures and systems, financial structures and systems, even having affiliate entities, financial entities, which the government can feel comfortable dispensing that money, I think that's the way to go. Okay.
And there's something here that I'd like to hear all your views on, and it's been brought up by Linda Chepkwony, and I'll start with you, Mushai, then I'll come to the rest of the panelists. Linda Chepkwony on Twitter is saying, Trevor, let's not even start on a very high and big note. How many Kenyan SMEs, entrepreneurs, youths, and cross-border traders even know about AFTA? And she continues to say, information awareness and sensitization and capacity building is so crucial first for us to even be able to utilize it. Yes. How are we breaking this down for the kawaida person who's out there? I may be just having my small kiosk. How should you break down this information for them to understand that they can take advantage of it, and where do they even start?
Yeah. I think it is one of the challenges when you come to trade policy, and let's say general policy, is the complexity of it. So sometimes even for us when you're having a conversation around it, it is quite, is it mind-boggling, the number of things that you have to be considered and the detail and all that kind of thing. So it becomes very difficult to put it down to communication. You know, ideally, it's like our laptop or our phone. we know it works. You know,
Yeah.
there's WhatsApp and there's M-Pesa. I don't know what Safaricom does.
Yeah.
But I just know if I put in my PIN,
It will work.
the M-Pesa will go and things will happen.
Yeah.
So ideally what we want to do, and again, the challenge is that the whole structure AFCFTA is at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we're at the beginning of engineering this and building that. So there is not really much to communicate. What will happen in the end, like happens already today with EAC, people know that you can go to Tanzania and buy onions and bring them
Yeah.
to Kenya.
Yeah.
That's what people know, and people do. So people start to understand, oh, actually you can go get this here and you can trade with it. So until we develop that, that's when we'll have a position, a place where we can actually start communicating it better. People can understand what is doable. But I think for industrialists, for people in business, and it is the big thing to start thinking about, even if you're starting small now,
Yeah.
you can start thinking that actually the market that I'm going to have will not just be Nairobi, Mombasa or Kenya. I can start thinking about what is it that I'm structuring or investing towards that can go regional.
Yeah.
You can start looking at those countries, because today, you know, the internet has all the information you need. You can start thinking about what raw material is there in Burundi or in, we've talked about Tanzania, Eritrea. I'm thinking about distant countries we don't usually think about.
Yeah.
What raw material is there that I could use, or I could get somebody to supply me with here to make something that can sell here, or what can I sell into that market that is available. One other issue which I think was touched on earlier by Judy, which is crucial, and as we were talking about AGPO, is the youth.
Yeah.
Because the thing about Africa, and I think it's what is also driving this at a policy level, is that we expect there's a youth explosion. You know, we have this huge youth bulge.
Yes.
And so we are going to have to create jobs and create prosperity for people to be able to live. So in all African countries, I would say most African countries, that is something that policymakers either have in mind or should have in mind, because the youth are coming in, they need to be given jobs. We need to create an economy or some way of them generating food for themselves and income for themselves and prosperity for the future.
Yeah.
So it will need to have a youth focus.
Yeah.
To say that what is it that we can engage youth in and young people who are strong and energetic to start doing. Manufacturing is obviously one of those areas, because we say manufacturing creates a lot of jobs,
Yeah.
and those jobs also have multiplying effects. You
Yeah.
can have a multiply effect with jobs. One job creates other jobs, but so does agriculture,
Yeah.
because we have a lot of arable land, and then the trick becomes, can we connect our agriculture with our manufacturing, so that you then have a multiply effect
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Dungo, you know, that's what we're talking about in terms of capacity and target market.
Yeah.
Because even if it's a farmer, if they're thinking of going continental, it has to begin right from the first produce that they use to put in the soil. The chemicals that they have, the fertilizers, the herbicides and pesticides, all those things. How do we disseminate this information so well so that when it begins, I know exactly how my coat will fit me, so to speak, so that you know how to take advantage. How should we disseminate this information to the people?
I'm looking at this information like it can be segregated in bits. For example, if it is to the farmer, create that information set that makes sense for him. Tell him, this is what you're producing,
Yeah.
this is what is available around the continent, and also tell him this is what is likely to happen.
Yeah.
Because he could be trying to put his house in order, but there's an influx of similar products coming from our other African partner states. So it's to take out the bit that relates to the farmer and give him the entire value chain,
Yeah.
from finances to raw materials to access to markets to what government policies will favor him,
Yeah.
and to what he's bound to face when he goes outside of Kenya.
Yeah.
And do the same for the youth. Do the same for the micro and small medium enterprises. Do the same for women in manufacturing. Let every segment that that is in business,
Yeah.
take out what relates to them, what it means. When this market is opened up, I will
Yeah.
no longer be comfortable. I'll have to put in measures to enhance my standards.
Yeah.
If I need to go to, let's say, DRC Congo, what do I need to fulfill? And this is where it's high time that also as women or MSMEs will need to go and get information, get the correct information. For example, through Keproba, we can know what are the export potentials. They can do a mapping which shows us these are the products that we have potential to produce, and potential includes everything: capacity, quality, price, and these are the markets that we can go to. But also, from the same statistics, let us see what are we likely to face. What could come from West Africa? What
Yeah.
could come from South Africa? What could come from North Africa? That we need to be ready, either to fight
Yeah.
for our share, or to allow natural value chains to take place. Because I know each of these regional trading blocks have also mapped out their value chains to see what is it that they are good at, and what is it that they are going to focus on, and what is it that they are going to really, for lack of a better word, protect their own
Yeah.
industry, and what are they going to open up so that the Kenyans and Ugandans and Tanzanians can go freely and trade.
Yeah.
So I think it is to make this information almost custom made for each constituent that you want to address, so that it makes sense to them, it is simpler. Otherwise, if we go with all this information,
Yeah.
it will feel like drowning,
Yeah.
yet you can just make it bit-sized
Yeah.
to make sure Mama Mboga understands what it means.
Yeah.
The woman in manufacturing understands what it means. The consultants, other providers of services, to understand what it means
Yeah.
for them, so that it's not like the constitution where we say so long as Bwana Mushai has read it,
Yeah, then iko sawa.
iko sawa. Yeah.
Karanja, how then would you break this down for the Mama Mboga as well? Because I wonder what the MSME Alliance idea is. Do
Yes.
you want to go into this as an alliance so that you help trade on behalf of your people, or do you want them to do it individually? And how would you break down this information for her to understand that if I'm to blow up my business, so to speak, these are the first things that I need to do. This is the next step that I need to take, and this is my only target market,
Yes.
so that you don't have to target the entire continent. You can just say that the only people I want to target is in Uganda, and that's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tackle it in two ways: sociological approach, and also like MSME Alliance, what we like to do.
Yeah.
Number one, I remember when we were growing up, we used to have small chambers when you were doing the 844 system, the KCP.
Yeah.
So it was easy for us, age 40s and above, to go into, let's say, agribusiness.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult for now, the millennials and the rest, to go to agribusiness. And that is why China is thriving, because at the comfort of my phone, I can be able to order something in China and sell it online and make money. So when you look at that, we have to change the approach,
Yeah.
especially from these young people, so that we can be able now to connect with what we are going to do. Because ideally, we find that sometimes it's too late for us to be able to disseminate information and people to absorb it when they are older enough to be able, when they are older enough to implement it. So when you look at the younger people, let us start from school. Let us show them opportunities, agribusiness. Let us show them online opportunities that they can be able to venture into globally, so that they can have a global approach towards business. Now, when it comes to MSME Alliance, one of the things that we are doing is we want to be a one-stop shop of information.
Yeah.
One-stop shop of information. We have invested a lot of money in terms of, and we're investing through our partners and investors within the country and also out abroad, making sure that we gather a lot of researchers and information, so that we can be able to be a one-stop information center, whereby you can call anytime, free of charge, so that you can be able to access that info. It's very, very much important, because number one, when you look at some of the government institutions and entities, let's say, for example, the Ministry of Trade and Industrialization, that is ideally what they're supposed to be doing, gathering information there and disseminating it in smaller bits, to SMEs. I know they have a wider scope of they have a lot in their hands and a wider scope of what they are supposed to approach. But SMEs being the 98% of businesses in Kenya, I think it should have an ideal way of approach. And that is where we are partnering with different even government agencies to disseminate that information so that you can get information of what you can sell in Uganda, what you can sell in Rwanda, what you can sell in Kampala is Uganda, what you can sell in South Africa. But you see now, when you look at the Africa Continental Trade Area, in that agreement, you find that some countries, as Madam Judy is saying, they are holding dear to some of the produces. They have said 90% of, they are going to float 90% of all what you produce, but each and every country is being given 3% to take from the 90%, which they are going to hold to themselves. So we have to have an approach whereby that information of the 3% of ours, like in Kenya, what is it and how can we be able to build capacity to the mama mboga? And there's an approach that Mushai brought, and I think it's important for me to bring it here. There has to be a link between the bigger manufacturers and the smaller manufacturers, whereby the bigger manufacturers play the mother ego kind of approach, whereby they cover the smaller manufacturers. You go out there and fight the international continental business. And once we get a lot of, let's say, orders, we are going to you are going to build your capacity to supply to us as we supply to the wider market, so that we can be able to pull up this small manufacturer to be able to, number one, capacity building, number two, quality control also, because with the bigger manufacturer will go to the smaller manufacturer and tell the smaller manufacturer, this is the quality that I want us to produce. Do you have capacity? No, I don't have capacity. What do you need? Machines. These are the machines. What finances? These are the finances, so that you can produce for me as I produce for others, you know, for the wider market. And I think with that kind of approach, and that is a selfless approach, I think you are going to be able to pull and to have one big economic synergy and even meet the market and build our economy.
The reason I'm bringing that up is because you've been at the Small Scale Traders and Importers Association before, and you did consolidated consignees, and you'd bring in, say, like people in Gikomba would have a container, and then the different consignees on the same container, which made it even cheaper. That's the reason why I'm saying that would you rather then do this on behalf of the MSMEs rather than letting them handle it individually? Yes,
we have to do that on behalf of MSMEs, and that is why now, you remember when you were doing the importations, and we are still doing the importations because they are under our umbrella. We are encouraging them, you know, let's now move towards manufacturing. You remember we had issues, we were talking with Mr. Mushai, I think we have had meetings even with the CS of Trade, and we were fighting and saying, why don't we have, you know, you can't kill one sector to build a sector. So you have to capacity build one sector, the importations, so that they can become manufacturers. And when you were there, you were advocating for consolidated cargo, and that consolidated cargo is cheaper to produce in China, it's cheaper to produce in Vietnam, and in the Asian tigers. But it's also important for us to know that we cannot be able to do that for long. Why? Because COVID has brought another dynamic, or other business and economic dynamics. And so, as we advocate for importations, why can't we think of some of those things you can be able to produce? Why should we import toothpicks? Why should we import even mabatis? Why should we import bulbs? Why should we import even wires? Why should we import those things? And we can be able to produce them locally. And so we had an introspective way of, you know, looking at our business structures and models, and we said, as much as we are doing this, let this be a buffer. Let it build our capacity as SMEs to be able now to go to the bigger picture of manufacturing. And so, as an alliance, it's very much important for us to do that on their behalf, and that is why we are saying we are going to be big, and we are not selfish. We are bringing everybody on board. It's not a one-man entity. It's like the way we have a Kenya Association of Manufacturers, which has brought every person on, you know, every small manufacturer and big manufacturers in that umbrella. Now in the alliance, we are bringing every person on board, and it's wide and it's huge, so that now we can be able to open those opportunities on behalf of SMEs, and they can be able to access to the market, they can be able to access to finances. We are even looking at seeing how we can have financial institutions. If the financial institutions in Kenya cannot be able to have tailor-made approach of some products, we can even approach international financial institutions which are able to absorb, you know, and are able to understand us and bring in money to be able to capacity build the SMEs.
Mushai, you know, that's an interesting perspective. The international investors will now be coming. because you're safer off then coming to invest in Kenya and supplying to the entire continent than trying to doing it from outside.
Yes.
Doesn't that then open another Pandora's box in terms of unfair competition because of the financial might that comes with it? Investors in China will then decide and come and build industries here and then take advantage of the entire continent, whereas those are the same things we would have done if we were more organized as a people.
Yeah, I think it's not binary in terms of, it's not either or.
Yeah.
I think both need to work together because actually for us to grow, the rate of industrialization that we need supposes that we are going to get foreign direct investment. And by the way, even if you look at places like China, they have had huge amounts of foreign direct investment.
Yeah.
So there are no markets that don't exist without somebody coming in. And usually what you're hoping that they bring you in is not just money, but it's also technology.
Yeah.
And capability to do certain things. Because again, if we take, let's assume it is the mobile phone is the example we were using earlier. If Samsung can move from Korea and come to Nairobi and start manufacturing here for our market, you see, we were still going to buy phones. But now we are buying phones and it is our youth who are making them. It is our people who are actually engaged in the making of them. So it is not necessarily a bad thing, and you can take it in whatever area it brings. Those companies, again, like we said, they bring networks.
Yeah.
And that network of suppliers for them will be local. They bring know-how, because even today, I can tell you, for a lot of local manufacturers, we benefit a lot from employees who've worked with the multinationals, whether it is local or regionally. So they kind of up the skill level of the manufacturing industry by coming in. So we do need both local manufacturing and international. And then again, of course, some of them, which is already happening, they will come and invest with local manufacturers.
Yeah.
Because they're like, you know, we don't understand the market fully. You know it better, you have capacity, you've got connections, etc. We don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
So that also benefits the local manufacturing sector and industry.
Yeah.
And then finally, of course, like you said, they do bring competition on things like quality, which, like Jean mentioned earlier, is absolutely useful for us to develop our capacity to produce.
Yeah.
Because we need to be competitive. And it's one of our big things we keep arguing about, or we make a point of is, both internally, each company must be competitive. That means that you're producing at a good cost and that you're producing at a good quality that customers want.
Yeah.
Similarly, and I think it is not, we should not assume that Samsung is going to come and build a factory in Kenya because we have the Africa Free Trade Area.
Yeah.
If on the government side, on our policy side, we are not organized, these people, they're going to come and build a factory in Botswana.
Yeah.
They'll build a factory in Uganda or in Rwanda. They'll build factories elsewhere because we have put in things in our own economic system and governance system that are making it too expensive for people to operate in this market. And here is where when we talk about unfair competition in that sense, we usually say of course there is low-cost competition, which is they are more efficient, more effective. That's not necessarily unfair in that sense. But there is unfair where we are the ones making the field difficult. We are the ones introducing taxes to local manufacturing that favor people importing. In some cases abroad, you find people are getting some sort of subsidy. But that seems to be less and less the case. And there are actually measures. We actually now even have we have a trade measures office where we can actually impose measures where subsidies have been put. But what we need to be careful is, are we making our environment attractive for investment? Are we making the operations, and there is investment, ease of doing business.
Yeah.
It is easy to come and set up.
Yeah.
But then after day 2, is it easy to operate? Which is now about what is our competitiveness?
Yeah.
How are we competitive? And actually, if we look at our UNIDO, there is an assessment done by UNIDO,
Yeah.
the Industrial Development organization, UN Industrial Development Organization, and Kenya is not doing very well on that. We are like 115 on that list. We are a bit ahead of East African countries, but when you look at Africa, we should start getting worried about South Africa, Egypt, who are way ahead. And we need to work on those things that are going to make us industrially competitive, which is about, do we have access to land, do we have access to skills, do we have power cost that is reasonable, do we have taxation that is attractive in terms of, you know, it incentivizes investment rather than disincentivizing investment, and also stability. I think one of the key things we've been asking, and we are going into a budget cycle now, is that you need stability about the taxes. So I don't want to start, when I start my project, this was the tax level. 2 years later, when I open the factory, the tax level has changed. Or even worse, which tends to happen, 3 years later, when the government sees I'm making money, the tax level changes again. Because they're trying to extract more. But whereas at the beginning we had agreed what we were going to extract. So those are some of the issues we need to be, to create fair competitiveness in our market, we must create a good policy environment that will make it easier for people to invest here.
Jane, you know, even just the thinking around it, this is a huge opportunity, but only if we plan right. We might lose that. We might lose really big on this. One of the other conversations that has been had is a single EAC currency. Do you think that would be an advantage or a disadvantage?
In fact, thinking about the currency, for me, I would feel like we'll be spending more energy thinking about something that should come later. Let's first spend energy thinking about what can immediately be addressed to make my going to West Africa or North Africa easier. Because even when you look at our trade with Europe, we are trading on different currencies. Our trade with the US, we are trading on different currencies. And our trade with China, it's on a different currency. So for me, I feel like that is, it's an important conversation, but it is
much later.
It can come much, much, much later when we have addressed the near-term things that could make trading much easier within our African continent.
So you're in the manufacturing department. As this kicks off, what is the first thing that you want to see, like the low-hanging fruits that you want to be implemented like yesterday?
The low-hanging fruits is, I have to look inside first. I look at myself. Am I ready? Am I ready to take up that, or is the domestic market enough for me? Number two, if there's opportunity for me and I'm ready to take it up, what are the barriers that I need removed? And like he said, some of these barriers, I will not go by myself and remove them. The question is, who do I need to associate with so that I can amplify my voice of advocacy? And in our case, we are members of KM, where we go, take our issues, and using that platform, we can amplify our voice so that certain changes can be made to make trading much, much easier. Number three, I don't only want to know what is on the text of this free trade area. I also want to know what is quiet. You know, the things that subtext. The things that you don't normally come to your face immediately, unless somebody who has deciphered them breaks it down for you. The
things they call terms and conditions.
Exactly.
It is said very fast. Terms and conditions apply.
Because I might look for a good opportunity in another country, but when it comes to payments, it becomes something you're following for the next 2 years. And yet you supplied products, there's proof of all these things. So I think it's to first understand what is in it for me. Do I have capacity to take it up? And do I have a body that can also speak on my behalf? Because this is not a conversation that I can be knocking at the Ministry of of Trade or National Treasury. I have to go through an organization that we are going to say, what kind of tariff measures do we need to put in place if we are to protect certain local industries, or what kind of tariffs do we need to relax a bit if we are to import raw materials from some of those countries.
Yeah.
So I think it is for the information to be so clear,
Yeah.
for me to know, have I taken full advantage of the domestic market, and do I have now excess or surplus that can go to another market and at terms that are good for me?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I think everybody is looking at free trade area.
Yeah.
How can I increase my profitability? How can I increase my market share?
Yeah.
How can I diversify? Maybe I've been doing something and I have opportunity to use the same machinery to do something,
things. Yeah.
something additional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Value addition.
Exactly.
Now, Karanja, you see, if Madam Jane is speaking like that, and she's a huge manufacturer,
Yes.
what about the MSMEs? What is the plan for them? What's the easiest low-hanging fruits for them on this free trade?
There's something that the government is doing, and we're in partnership with them. Number one, because of capacity building, the government introduced special economic zones. In the special economic zones, we can be able now to have competitive pricings in terms of production.
Yeah.
You know, bring the small, medium entrepreneur, get a small plant within that special economic zone, then give them incentives in terms of power cuts, you know, make sure that you cut the cost of power, and many other tariff incentives so that they can be able to produce competitively. So with the special economic zones, if the government is able now to do as they have said, that they are going to make as many special economic zones as possible in every county.
Yeah.
Now, the products in every county can be, you know, they can be value added, you know, so that now we can be able to be competitive internationally.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is information, dissemination of information, which is key. Because you see, you may have those special economic zones, but people don't know why even they should go there, and how even the processes of going there, and we are
Or
used
how
to
they even operate.
even how they are going
What
to
are
operate.
they even?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the government has been doing successfully is being complex. Because when you look at even some of the policies, they are neither here nor there, unless maybe they're interpreted by a lawyer or somebody, because the language is so complex that it needs to be broken down to consumable bits. And that is why it's important even for the policies which are made, because sometimes we feel that there's information that is hidden there to be able to, for other people to benefit other than the SMEs, and that is why it has to be simplified. So that dissemination of information is very much important, and we are stepping into that space.
Yeah.
And we are doing that so that we can be able to bring to fusion that kind of approach. And you know, every time we cannot be pointing at the government. Yeah. We saw that the government, if we wait for the government to act on our behalf, as Judy is saying, act on our behalf, sometimes you may die waiting. And that's why we have to have organized groups like Kenya Association of Manufacturers, SME Alliance of Kenya, KEPSA, Chambers, all of us being able to sit down on the negotiating table and bringing on board or bringing on the table what our members have sent us to do, and negotiating accurately and pushing the government to be able to see, you know, that those policies are made, you know, they are tailor-made for the people that we are representing. That is key. That is very, very important.
Yeah. Michelle, what do you think on your side? Because I'm thinking there's trying to get policies that are tailor-made, like Karanja is saying.
Yes.
And then there's the big boys, the players who actually are the ones who make decisions here. And for them, they will pull in their direction because they're already ready for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you draw the balance?
Where do you? I think, you know, when you have, as they say, well, if you want to eat an elephant, you start with a bite, So at some level, it doesn't matter where you're going to bite it from. You just need to start biting it. And if we agree this is going to be a long-term thing. But at another level, like they said, the key things for business that is going to help is if we can get, for instance, these rules clear. And I take also Karanja's point about the rules. And clear rules, what happens is that they become almost second nature. We don't have to argue about them. They're actually quite complex. I was just thinking like driving. Here, you know, if you think about driving, and if you remember back to when you were in driving school or whatever, for people who don't know how to drive, it seems very complex. But now, after a while, you get into the car, you don't think about...
it's almost natural.
It's just natural. You go on to it. So what will happen is as we develop the rules and we start to disseminate them and implement them, it becomes more natural for people to deal with them. Now, in terms of the importance of those rules, I think, like we were talking about standards earlier, is where we started on standards, even things like licensing, because that is what is going to help even at an MSME level and smaller. Because what you want to know, what is the quality standard required of, even let's say they're beating sufurias in Gikomba.
Yeah.
You need to know what is the dimension allowed of a sufuria, say, if there
What
is
is a
any such
standard
thing.
sufuria?
What is a standard sufuria?
Yeah.
Because once you know that, you can start making them. But if you are making each one at a different size, you are not able to trade, and that becomes a challenge. So creating that level playing field and creating those regulations that are clear.
Yeah.
Because again, even if it's an exporter, all I need to know is if I have a broker, what do you call it, an agent, a customs agent, or a clearing agent, or a transporter who understands what is required, and what is required is standard, then they can easily start. And of course, that again is another business, because that is somebody else here who can say, actually, I know what is required to move things from here to Malawi, and I can do it. I'll get a van and I'll arrange to collect things and put it together. But it's that standardization that is important. And then, like Jane mentioned, is to be prepared, because companies need to be prepared both from a perspective of what markets are going to be open for them, what are the opportunities going to be, but also what are the challenges going to be. Because like we said, there are going to be new players coming into the market, whether they are going to be regional players who are doing, so you need to benchmark yourself against the price of what are regional players able to do, so you can understand where you can operate. And then sometimes it's going to be foreign investors who can see the big market, and they start making plans and saying, actually, we can come invest in here and make something out of it. So we need to be prepared from a business perspective as well, as business owners and so on. Lastly is, although it's a scary one, is to mention sometimes in our current times, is logistics also. Because sometimes I think that's the political classes get carried away with logistics. They like building roads and that kind of thing. It's exciting for them. So we do need them though, but we need to measure them according to the trade that is moving along, because we will need to move goods. And if it takes too long or it is too difficult, it becomes a challenge. And some of those is just routes, because today I think it's to take a container, I think from here to West Africa, it goes through Europe.
Goes all the way out.
It goes all the way and comes back. Sometimes it might go through South Africa. So for instance, why are we not developing that route round through South Africa for shipping and having, at least 2 ships a month or something that takes things that route and brings things back this way. So those kind of things are going to be necessary and will be developed over time.
All right. Madam Jane, right now as we're speaking, there's COVID-19 also, something that we had not foreseen. What should organizations be thinking of in terms of recovery paths now? Because there are those who kept saying after COVID, nobody seems to know what after COVID looks like. This seems to be having a 3rd, 4th, 5th wave, different variants here and there. There's a most likely chance that this will stay with us for quite some time. What should organizations be thinking about right now in terms of growth going forward? And I know on this one you can only speak on behalf of MRM, but what should they be thinking of in terms of recovery?
Okay. One thing I want to mention is that I think now the conversation of after COVID has sort of died out a bit, and we are living with it, because nobody seems to know when it's going to end. So the fair bit is to just know it is here with us and live with it. Then for organizations is to look at their supply chains, because there are definitely those products that are sourced from outside. We don't have the capacity locally. We don't have it even in Africa. We have to get certain raw materials from outside, and have plans which look at if, for example, certain markets are opening and shutting according to how the wave of COVID is rising and falling. Although now we are lucky that most of the developed markets have already done a high percentage of vaccination of their populations, but it's to just look at what kind of lead times are we looking at, so that we don't have any shortage of our raw materials. And for countries where we are exporting to, are we prepared in terms of the trucks that are going there? Are they compliant or are they vaccinated by now? So that there is no delay of movement of these products. Internally, of course, most of the companies did a lot of preparedness in terms of health protocols, right from the gate all the way to the offices and manufacturing plant. And what that has done to us, it has become the norm. You know that you'll need to check your temperature, you need to wash hands, you need to sanitize, you need to social distance, you need to reduce maybe eating in the office and stuff like that. So that has been going very well. The thing is, how do you now keep your employees completely informed of what they do after they leave the already, you know, a controlled environment? What do they need to be careful about so that you don't lose any employees? You have your employees, work is going on, it's not disrupted, and just making sure that you are investing wisely. Like Mr. Mushai says, with the increased competition because of the trade, then we'll have to also invest more wisely. Are we increasing our production lines? Are we enhancing quality? Are we bringing new technology? Invest wisely for the long term.
Okay.
Yes.
And we have Engineer Lazaro Kanyamboku who says the African continent must do the following for this good program to be realized. 1, unified standard taxes. 2, reduce negative political tension amongst the member states. And 3, suppress corruption. Number 4, fight illegal trades and stop the armed conflict. All right? Let's see what else you're saying here. Jacob Abere Matlala says, that is the free trade area, is a big market opportunity area that as a country needs to invest in. Kenya, we have a large pool of intellectuals in service and in good industries. Although policies may look complex, it's time foreign and trade ministries to negotiate for the best. Example, we have seen China negotiating overseas for its human intelligence and infrastructure developments and gone ahead to finance them through Exim Bank. All right? I'll give you a chance for closing remarks on this really fast, starting with you, Samuel.
I think going forward, we should be able also to protect the businesses within our boundaries, because you find that some of the policies which we have, basically they are favoring the international countries or international players who are coming on board. And so if we are going to be competitive, let's protect the local manufacturers, the local small, medium entrepreneurs, the policies. What is the point of entry and penetration of an international player coming on board? How are they going to partner? Because they shouldn't come here and play and you know, and do their business independently. They should also partner with locals to be able to grow our local market, to grow our local brains, to grow our local experiences and even products, so that we can do capacity building from even the person who has been employed. Even if they are going to bring other people from their countries, they can be able to do that. And the reason why I'm saying that, because we have seen other countries coming on board and setting base to do manufacturing, and they are doing it independently. So the policies which govern the international businesses which are coming here should be very clear and should be able to protect our local businesses. And Mama Boga, because I speak on her behalf, capacity building, and let the government, when they talk about finances, let them break down to the to very consumable information that Mama Boga understands, and make very practical, realistic approach towards financing those small SMEs. All right,
Mushai, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's a very good move that we've done with this free trade area. If we trade more with each other, everybody grows. I think we need to look at what our areas of specialization are, what we can do best for the market. But if we all look at ourselves and say, just check what I'm getting only, without giving anything, it is not going to work. Everybody has to share in this. But what you realize is that if everybody grows and all countries participate, then we will all grow. It will be a benefit for all of Africa.
All right. Madam G, 30 seconds, closing remarks.
Yes, for sure the inter-African trade is going to give us a catapult in terms of social gains, economic gains, and looking inwardly as an organization is to prepare myself to be competitive for what is coming to face me, but also looking towards the government is for the government to start addressing the areas of uncompetitiveness that we have been talking about. we've been talking about we are upwards of 12% uncompetitive compared to our neighbors. Can they also start looking at that urgently? Because then it's going to even be bigger than that 12%.
Yeah.
So that as an organization, I am doing my bit to remain competitive, to be innovative, bring new products, and keep employees. But government is also helping me to reduce the cost of power, to make sure my raw materials are coming in at 0%, so that I remain competitive, so that everybody can do their bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time this morning. Samuel Garanja, CEO, MSME Alliance, Mushai Kunyia, Kenya Association of Manufacturers Chairperson, and Jane Dungo, External Affairs Manager at MRN. Speaking about the AFTA, that is the African Free Continental Trade Area, and it is just for everyone out there. As this is being ratified and implemented, try to ride the wave. Find out what's in it for you and get the best out of it. All right, taking a quick break here on Daybreak.